Hey guys, Rick Taylor here with KS USA. Today we're going to talk about how to install the Vantage internal route and adjustable travel dropper seat post on your bike. First step we want to do is, if you've already got a post on your bike, go ahead and get it set up so that you're in a comfortable pedaling position where you get full extension, where you would be if you're pedaling on flats or a climb. And then what you'll want to do is take a measurement from the center of the rail here down to the center of your bottom bracket, and just make a note of that dimension. Okay, and then we go ahead and take your old seat post off the bike. So we'll go ahead and unscrew that, and we'll pull the whole assembly off the bike and get ready to put our new post on. So we've got our cable installed following the bike manufacturer's instructions, and now we're ready to go forward with installing the cable clamp. So whether you're running a reverse route or what they call universal route, where you have a pinch bolt up at your remote, or whether you're running the fixed end of the cable and have that run through, you're going to need to put the cable clamp here at this end. The measurement from the ferrule to the bottom of the cable clamp is 15 millimeters, 1.5. Now we're going to put our 3 millimeter in the side opposite of the set screw, and we're going to go ahead and tighten this up. And you're going to see the cable kind of distort. It's going to kind of curve there, which is fine. What we want to do is we're going to put the Allen in one side, and we're just going to push that cable, and we want to end up with this being a right angle here. Okay, so we'll get that all set up, and it looks nice and straight where it comes out. Don't worry about the top. We're going to cut that off. Okay, now another important thing is, do not use bicycle cable cutters at this point here. You want to use a diagonal cutter, and you want to put the flush cut side down to the barrel and cut that cable off. And that gives you a nice flush cut here with not much tail hanging out. If you use bike cable cutters, it's going to leave a longer tail, which you don't want. That's going to interfere with the actuator when we put it in. I've taken the saddle clamp off for the moment so we can show you something after we get this stage done. What we want to do here is install the barrel. If you look at this actuator, there is one side that's a complete loop and one side that's like a half loop or a hook. You want to make sure the cable is outward and goes in past that hook and then goes down, and you're going to put that ferrule in the end here, and then you have a 1.5 millimeter set screw. It's not the one back here but the one in the front, and you're just going to tighten that down a few turns. What that's going to do for us is that's going to hold that ferrule in place, so when we put this in the bike, you're not going to have an issue with the cable slipping off. Next thing we're going to do is take a little bit of fiber grip, and you can use whatever brand you like, but we've actually used the Finish Line stuff here in the shop for quite a while and had very good results with it. You want to go ahead and apply that to the mast tube. With the laser etching that happens on the post here for the markings, that's alloy, and you have on a carbon frame, you have the chance of electrolysis or galvanic reaction, and that's when the carbon actually trades electrons with the alloy and can cause a kind of speeding up of corrosion or you know, an issue where your post could possibly get stuck in the frame. So as long as you put this on to prep it, and then if you do that at each service interval, you'll never have a situation where your post could get stuck into the frame. And so yeah, we want to go ahead and put a light coat all over, making sure that we do extra here on the laser etched area. We're going to go ahead and slide this down into the frame. Now make sure as you're pushing this down, we do have the cable attached there, and that cable has to go somewhere. So as we're pushing it in, you want to pull the cable out at the front of the bike. You don't want the cable to become pinched or kinked, because you could either damage the cable or you could cause poor performance of your dropper. Okay, so we'll go ahead and install that. Okay, For the moment, we're just going to use a regular Allen wrench, not a torque wrench. If you have the torque wrench handy, you can do that. But we're just going to snug it enough where it doesn't move around, okay? Now, we're going to adjust our travel here, and by turning the screw, you're going to extend it out to its longest point, okay? And it'll stop. Now what we want to do is that measurement you took earlier, we're going to measure, and we should put the lower cradle on, because that way we can measure to this point right here, and that's the center of our saddle. And we'll take a measurement. Now, if this measurement is over the measurement that you took, and you still have space here, go ahead and loosen this bolt and move your saddle down, or your seat post rather, down until you get that measurement, okay? If you measure it and it is still over, but this collar is touching here and bottomed out, then you take your Allen and you put it up. We'll take that out of the way. You put your Allen in there, and then you turn it and use your measuring tape and just keep turning this until the travel drops down to where you're in that position of the measurement that you took earlier, okay? That way you get every millimeter of possible drop out of your post, but you don't run the risk of it overextending when you're in a pedaling position. Okay, so once we've got that set, the next thing we'll do is we'll take our torque wrench set to 4 Newton meter, and we're going to tighten that binder bolt up. Okay, it's really important not to over torque this, because you can distort the tube and you'll cause poor performance of the dropper. 4 Newton meters on the clamp with the carbon paste, you should have no problem with that post ever slipping. You should be in really good shape with that setup. Okay. Now, for our clamp, take a little bit of that fiber prep and put it in the grooves here where your rails sit. I also like to take a little bit of grease, okay, and the grease we're going to put here on the cradle where we're going to have metal to metal. Put that in, okay. Now this is the fiber prep. We're going to put that on the underside of the clamp as well, okay. And then the grease, we're also going to put a little bit on the underside of the head of the bolt and a little bit on the threads. And I also like to put just a little bit on these cylindrical nuts rather. And we'll just get one started. Just do a couple threads, because having a little bit of extra play here where we go to install the saddle is going to help us out. Okay, just like that. And then get all of the grease and fiber prep off my fingers before we touch the saddle. Okay. And then we'll put that on a little bit of an angle and slip it in. You can see it kind of drops right in for us. One little trick that I've learned is if you roll the saddle forward, that cylindrical nut that's in there, if you kind of push down and then tighten, makes it really easy to hold that in place. So instead of trying to put your finger up there and hold that nut, just push the front of the saddle down, the nose down, and keep pushing it until you get to about where you think you want your saddle position as far as tilt. Okay, and we can do the same to the other side. It's a little harder to get this one to tip back far enough to hold it in place, so you can just do this one by hand. But you kind of get the idea what we're doing here. And once I get it close to being tight, but so there's still, you've got quite a bit of room here, so we'll keep going. But once I get it close to being tight, that's the time to kind of wiggle things around, make sure it all seats in, and then slide to your fore-aft adjustment to set the saddle where you want it. You have a couple of limit lines on most saddles. Make sure you keep the clamp within those limit lines. That's more to protect the seat rail. The seat manufacturers design that to be within that range, and that's where they've designed you to be clamped. So do that. Okay, and then at this point I would go ahead and set the bike on the ground, because that way you're going to know where that level position is, and we're going to want to use a torque wrench and torque that. And so check the underside of your seat post. You'll have a torque value listed there. Usually it's between 12 to 15 Newton meters. So check yours depending on what hardware set you have. And then just go ahead and use your torque wrench to tighten those up. It's really important, even more than the torque value itself, it's important that both of these be equally torqued. If one's too tight and one's loose, the seat wants to migrate the other direction. So just make sure that they're evenly torqued. Okay, and then the last thing is we didn't discuss how to install your remote in this video. The reason being, we offer quite a few variations of remotes for KS droppers, and a lot of them are cross-compatible. So you could use this dropper with a different model remote, and so to not have things confusing and have to do a whole bunch of videos in one, please go to kssuspension.com, look at the YouTube videos, and just find the video that matches the remote that you've got, that you've selected for your bike, and watch that video, and it'll detail how to install the remote to the handlebar.